Have you done a stakeholder mapping exercise and then you're not sure what to do next? What engagement methods are you going to use? I'm Risha Hartley-Jones. I'm an anthropologist, and today I'm going to walk you through moving from stakeholder mapping using a power and interest matrix to determine which engagement methods are the best for different types of stakeholders. Now, this video is specifically for infrastructure and development projects. And if you want, you can check out my Stakeholder Mapping 101, Part 1 and Part 2, and I will put the link in the comments. So for stakeholder identification and analysis, there are different methodologies out there. So you've got potentially risk-based categorization, you can do a materiality assessment or social network analysis. My particular favorite is the power and interest matrix. And now this is attributed to Mendelov from about the 1990s, but it's used industry-wide now. So for a power and interest matrix, you have high influence, low influence on one axis, and then you have high interest and low interest on the other side. And the beautiful thing about a power and interest matrix is it translates so well from your mapping and your analysis into methods for engaging with different types of stakeholders. And you engage them differently based on where they fall in the matrix. So for this example today, we're going to pretend we're doing an infrastructure project. And normally you would do stakeholder mapping for a project. Now let's pretend it's in the very early stages of preparation. The engineering design's just started. Now normally you'd end up from a stakeholder mapping exercise with anywhere between 20 to 60 stakeholders mapped. Now, here I have left up a few stakeholders that you typically see. So we've got a local mayor who can potentially be have a very high level of influence. And in this case, we're going to say that they're very interested in the project. Maybe they want to get re-elected and the project is kind of part of their overall vision for the community. Can often happen. I've got national media. Now I've separated that. I haven't included local. We're just talking about the national media. Now in this country, the national media can be very influential over a project, promoting it and supporting it, or going against the project too, and can potentially affect project outcomes. So they have high influence, but at this stage they're not super interested in the project. And because stakeholder mapping is kind of a predictive exercise too, this project doesn't have a lot of controversy. It's not big environmental or social issues. So we're going to assume for now that they're probably not going to be super interested in this project. Now, we've also got, I put here, a local church. So you would include religious groups in the local community, especially the community that's closest to the project. Now, at the moment, they're not really interested. We don't expect them to be terribly interested about the project. And they're not at the lowest level of influence. They can be influential in that community. So we've sort of put them in the medium area. Okay, so let's assume our mapping for this project is now done. We've got our stakeholders on the map. But then what does that actually mean? And sometimes the results of the stakeholder mapping just might get put in a report somewhere, and that's the end of the story. But a power and interest matrix can really help you move it forward into working out, how do we engage with these different groups? How would we engage differently between the mayor and the local church, or the local church versus the media? Now, okay, so here we go. Let's start with the first. So basically what happens is you overlay the engagement approach. So for low interest, low influence, they monitor, keep satisfied. So we'll overlay up here for this group, for those that land in this quadrant, we keep them satisfied. For the high influence, high interest group, we're going to manage those stakeholders closely. And for this group down below, that's the medium to lower influence levels, but medium to high interest in the project. And we're going to keep them informed. Okay, so I missed a stakeholder group. Down here, we have households losing agricultural land, a percentage of their agricultural land. So if we assume that this was a road project, perhaps there's households with farms that the road's going through and they're losing a percentage of their land. So they're what we call directly affected households, and they're an important stakeholder group. Make sure you've got your directly affected households when you're mapped. So now an important aspect with stakeholder engagement is that it's proportionate. So for this, those stakeholder groups that fall in the manage closely or the keep informed quadrants, that is where you're going to put the most of your effort for engagement. Now, these are very influential stakeholders and very interested in the project, but equally the stakeholders down here, and often your directly affected groups will fall into this quadrant down here. So they are a very important group to be engaging, and often includes very vulnerable members of the communities that are directly affected. So it might be through resettlement. So this quadrant as well, so these two are your most important for proportionate engagement. So spending the most of your resources. So building on that, what types of methods would we typically see with your managed closely stakeholders? Okay, these are stakeholders that you're going to want to have one-on-one meetings with. So if it was the local fair, it might be a monthly one-on-one meeting, maybe just prior to construction beginning and during the construction phase. And it might be able to be tailored off after that. It could be a technical working group, focus group discussions, joint monitoring groups. These are those stakeholders that you're going to engage with very frequently. And those are the types of methodologies that you would use with those. Okay, so for this group here, your keep informed quadrant, things like town hall meetings, and you might even have thematic town hall meetings, especially if you've got a lot of affected people. So you might have a town hall meeting that's on compensation and resettlement, or you might have a town hall meeting that's on the results of the environmental impact assessment or environmental particular issues. Other techniques that you might see here include things like the website and having project information on the website, community notice boards. This group you're going to really want to keep informed so that they know what's happening with the project, if they're directly affected, what's happening with them. And that might be more at different stages of the project as well, especially in the lead up to and during construction phase, which is often when there's the most amount of disruption. For the keep satisfied group, now here we have the national media. So for them, you'd be looking at doing something like media briefings, definitely media releases, media briefings, and briefings you'd want to be doing at key milestones, especially before construction. Yes. So the media tours. Yes. Also a good way. Can be one-on-one. Given this group is still highly influential, you might not be doing, say, monthly meetings like you might with the mayor, but you decrease the frequency here. But one-on-one meetings can still be a good idea, given this group is still quite influential. So let's move down now to your final quadrant, which is your lower interest and lower influence group. These group, we're not going to spend a huge amount of our resources here, but we're going to keep an eye on that, basically. Keep an eye on this stakeholder group. So things that you can do, you might be doing media monitoring, so seeing what's coming up in the media about your project, looking through what's coming in if you've got a grievance redress mechanism in effect, so monitoring that to see what's coming through. And are there things on this stakeholder, on these stakeholders, maybe we need to step it up. So keeping an eye on this group. Social media monitoring can be an important one for this one too. So seeing the comments and things that are happening for the project's social media or for whoever the proponent is as well. So just keeping an eye on this group. And yes, stakeholders can move potentially, and that's okay. But these are basically your approaches for engaging with these different groups, and tells you where the best time of spend, of money, of staff resources for your stakeholder engagement moving forward. So that's how you move forward with stakeholder mapping. This tells you then what you're going to put in your stakeholder engagement plan for these different groups that you've mapped and the different types of engagement methodologies that you're going to be using. And it also tells you a lot about the frequency. So just remember, for this group is a higher level of frequency and different types of methods. And don't forget directly affected groups, especially if they're vulnerable or disadvantaged members of the communities in those groups, that are going to definitely need more frequent and more tailored methods for engagement. And there you go. That's how you move from stakeholder mapping to engagement methods.